Contractors love hammers. Private equity loves spreadsheets. And when those two worlds collide, somebody's going to get nailed. This episode, we're pulling back the curtain on why investors are buying construction companies, how they make their money by consolidating overhead, and what really happens once accountants show up with their fancy dashboards and four-letter acronyms. This is the Contractor Success Forum. I'm Wade Carpenter with Carpenter Company CPAs alongside Stephen Brown with Daniel Whitley Bonding and Insurance. Stephen, you brought up a topic that I silently have been dealing with a lot more regularly in the last 3 years: private equity, consolidators, and individual investors buying up construction firms. What are your thoughts?
It's exciting and scary at the same time. From my perspective as an insurance and bonding agent, I'm thinking, well, I'm probably going to lose a customer over this. If my company isn't buying someone else, I'm out. That part of it is weird. But also, I think thinking about how to make these decisions, we've had so many podcasts on what is the true value of your company? What's it worth? And how do you determine that? In this situation, we're saying, okay, here's someone that's going to buy your company. Is it a good deal? Because if it's a good deal for you, honestly, as you're bonding an insurance agent, I'm happy for you. I like to think we're friends anyway. Anything that's good for you is good for me. Everybody builds up companies to sell. And across the globe, in every type of business you can conceive of, people build up businesses to sell. And there are people that make money by building up businesses, selling them, doing it again and again. And there's people whose job it is to want to buy your company based on EBITDA, certain factors of your earnings capacity factor. And so that's analyzed. Here I am, I want to buy your company. I have a rough idea what your company does in volume and profit over the years because I've talked to the business broker who is bringing this to me. And I'm saying, based on what I hear in a 5-minute overview, I can give you a 3 to 5 times buyout of your company's value right now. And you say, okay, what is that company's value? And what factors might make that value go up or down in the marketplace?
Yeah, and I think it's things that we've kicked around for many years. I always used to say building the systems, building it so that you can build it up and sell it. And I've always advocated, you need great books. They're coming in, they want to be able to prove those numbers, prove that EBITDA number. And traditional buying and selling of any company, I guess, would like some kind of multiple of revenue. But there are some differences in construction. And there are some reasons that some of these private equity, these consolidators, these individual investors are buying that. And we have seen quite a few of those. And a lot of it is, we can get some kind of multiple. There are thoughts that, hey, we can consolidate the overhead. And if we can make a higher margin, we can sort of like capture. I've seen a lot of them where I am trying to chase the East Coast. Construction is a very fragmented industry. It's like a lot of individual owners. And when you can put some parameters around it where you can make some good money, it does make a lot of sense for these people trying to get into it. Maybe we can talk a little bit about why somebody would buy a construction company. Because I know what you used to say is, okay, it's worth what the equipment's worth, right?
Yeah, that's basically it. And here's the thing, the surety company never gives you credit for the value of your equipment anyway. Again, we talked about surety is looking at the future, not the past. And so what I see from my perspective is when someone's buying a company, the issue, even though surety bonding is a huge part of their business model, in fact, all their work is bonded, whoever's buying the company is not getting the right advice about how to maximize that relationship and build that comfort with the surety to keep things going smoothly. So that's just part of it. But then again, another part, like you were talking about, Wade, that's so important to the valuation is you're looking for a contractor that is consistently good at what they do. And you believe they're getting lower profit margins on their work in their particular area. So you can go in and you can buy them, you can buy their people, you can buy their systems, and you can take stress off of them financially. You can help them with their back office support. You can give them more business knowledge than they have, and you can demand higher margins at this particular time. So that's another factor. You're not just buying the employees, but you're buying the name and the reputation as well.
Absolutely. Reputation sometimes, but I've seen some where they're buying hard to obtain licenses or, as I said, geographic coverage. I had one particular that a guy left, he had 28 state licenses, and it sort of devastated. This is a $100 million company. And they were scrambling, like, how are we going to cover all these licenses? We had one person that was the CEO, and I don't know the full situation, but they made him mad. He left, and he's starting his own, and he's jumping right in there. But minority, women-owned, veteran-owned certifications that can get you into a door. I've seen the bonding capacity, seen insurance mod rates that you may want to talk about. You unpacked a lot of things when you said that, because we do see a lot of people when they walk into these different companies and you're trying to consolidate 10 different companies, you got 10 different systems and 10 different ways of doing things. We can talk about that in a little bit, but we've been brought in on some of these. We've been on buying and selling side. We've seen some people cash out very well. Some people are offering big multiples.
What kind of deal do you want, and how is what they're offering you going to be what you want to accomplish? The main thing you see is I want to retire. I want to cash out my business. And I can either sell it to my employees, or I can have a fire sale, or I can sell it to one of these business brokers. And then you're saying, how's that going to affect my employees? You worry about that because you put together a great team. How does that affect my team? How does that affect my employees? But I want to get out of business. I want to be out of this. And I want to get as much money as I can out of my business and what I'm doing before I retire. And then what are you signing there as far as how long you're committed to stay there? What kind of length of non-compete there is before you get bored and say, hey, I can help this friend of mine with his company big time. I can show them exactly what to do. I can help them turn around and start making money immediately doing exactly this. There's just a lot of criteria. Isn't it wonderful, though, when it does all come together? That makes sense. Somebody's buying your company based on EBITDA. What are you seeing? How does that play out, Wade? What are they looking for? What are they measuring? And why do they take so long to perfect their offer from the time they offer it to you from the time of the closing, where they transfer money? You have a closing, right?
Yeah. That sort of rolls into the due diligence. Sometimes you're dealing with different ways of doing job costing, or different ways of calculating your WIP. A lot of contractors will do things to dress up a financial statement or accelerate billings and stuff like that to make their balance sheet look better. And some of these savvy investors, they'll have a whole back office team that's digging into the due diligence. But if they've got good records that they can rely on and see that it's in order, it can go a long way to getting a better multiple. But unfortunately, what sometimes we see is they will take these things. I had somebody offer like $20 million to a contractor, and they hadn't seen their books. The books were unfortunately not, it wasn't just the books, they were heavily in debt. They did have a really good presence and reputation, but they strung them along. It was over a year of due diligence and digging into it. In the meantime, the owner had in his mind, hey, I'm going to go buy a yacht and all this. And they get this in their mind. And so they sign a letter of intent at a certain amount, and they get to the closing and they start beating down all these little things. And pretty soon it was a fraction. I've seen this multiple times, but it's a fraction of what they originally offered. Sometimes that's tactics on their end, depending on which side you're on. But I understand it. Too often people get in their minds like, hey, and they start spending money in their mind. And at the end, they're just like, okay, this is the only thing. And you're committed. You're like, okay, I got to take what I got to take.
And you're also depending a lot on your business broker to guide you through it, right? And they get a commission if the sale goes through, of course, but that's okay. If they're doing their job, the buyer is trying to drive those multiples down and they're trying to hold those multiples up. And it seems to me like you need more than one company offering you the same terms and conditions, or you're at their mercy, right?
I've had some have multiple offers, but a lot of people don't want the world to know they're out there for sale. Most of the people are that way. So you only usually sign a letter, non-disclosure agreements with one company, and then they string you along and you put all this time and effort into it. But what are they looking for is profitability, cash flow. They can look at your backlog and pipeline, but is it predictable? You already brought this up when we were talking about this. Is it repeatable? Is it recurring revenue that they can, an account that is service type work? Do they have the people, the processes, and these SOPs that are transferable? Reputation, relationships, the people and the processes. That is sometimes one of the reasons they're buying a company. the risk and continuity of the bonding relationship, which maybe you can talk about a little more.
That's definitely a factor. How do you control risk in your company? What systems are in place? What procedures are in place? What insurance is in place? And what kind of relationship do you have with your ability to control risk? I would like to think that your agent has a big part to do with that. But also, big construction companies have their own risk managers and safety people, and they depend a lot on a partnership and a team working together to make these decisions. You, as the owner of the construction company, also have your perception of risk. A job that might seem very risky to a competitor or someone buying your company may not be risky at all to you. And there's value in that. That's the value of your company, right? Your ability to analyze risk and overcome it.
Yeah. Along the lines of things, the people, the processes, those kind of things. Maybe you've got a particular vice president and they've been in charge of all the relationships. What are you going to do to keep that person? What's to keep them from jumping ship? The accounting back office kind of thing. A lot of times that's one of the key pieces. We actually have a client that came to us about 4 years ago and was buying a company. He's bought another couple of them since then. But he brought us in originally because what if this person that knows all this stuff in the back office leaves? And that was part of the impetus of bringing us in. They were really worried the whole system would break down. It turned out to be a great relationship with us that we're continuing to this day. We brought in a system. He did sort of merge in a couple of two very different ways of doing things. We've seen that quite a bit, as well as we have recently some that have been buying companies
Mhm.
and trying to capture a vertical and a couple of different subcategories. Even different subcategories have different systems, and putting all that together so you can report and see where it's making sense and where you can find some of that overhead savings. The point of all this was the people and the processes, and keeping that in place is some of the reasons we've been brought into some of these relationships.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Wade. And what you're talking about as far as vertical, maybe a general contractor buying a certain trade that they can do in-house because they're consistently subbing out and they're seeing too many fluctuations in their sub pricing. So they want more control over that. That's one thing. But if you're a general contractor selling yourself out to another general contractor, what do you offer that they don't offer? And I guess my point is, if I was looking to buy a business, Wade, I would say, I'm looking at these numbers and they're fantastic. If it's not broken, let's not fix it. How long can I buy out your company, keep things going the way they are, and get a return on my investment based on the margins that I demand for myself? And then let things just play out after that, depending on the market. Either resell the company or position it for reselling it or liquidate it or sell it to the employees.
Yeah, we've seen exactly that situation where general contractors, they start buying the subs to pick up a little more margin. They start with maybe drywall, and then they start, okay, let's have a concrete division. Let's have an HVAC or electrical plumbing, those kind of things where they can pick up more margin. A lot of times that's where they're giving a general contractor a percent gross profit is far lower than a sub or something like that. And so if they could pick up that margin, if somebody has some equity behind them, they can actually build an even more profitable company when they can capture that margin altogether. So
Mhm.
that's a great point that you bring up. Going back to integrating all these systems is such a hassle because general contractor works a certain way, HVAC contractor works another way, concrete contractor works a different way.
Well, what do you tell as a subcontractor your favorite subs? Hey, I'm selling out to so and so, but hey, listen, it's going to be great for you. Everything's going to be the same. They want us to keep our relationship. We're going to do better work than ever. We're going to do more work. We want to tie ourselves to you. And then all of a sudden, the new company comes in with even more stringent measures in place. And the sub's like, yeah, I'm not working for the same people anymore. My
Yeah,
devotion is to you, Wade, as the owner. You've done so much for me. I owe you, Wade. I don't owe these people buying your company.
that is a problem. And I know we've kicked around the things of ESOPs and selling to your own people versus one of these consolidators. A lot of times, some of these people may have some money behind them and they come up offering money, and your employees don't have anything. So it's a longer term deal. How do you sustain the value after you go sell out, and how do you make sure all these things come together? We're brought in sometimes an outsourced back office, and we continue with that vertical because we can usually do a lower fixed cost versus hiring somebody in house. And we do work across some of these industries. That's where we see that kind of stuff. But I'm just trying to say, what does it look like after we put the whole deal together?
That's a good point too. And I can say this at McDaniel Whitley, we can add value to your bonding experience, whatever's going on. We can discuss the impact on it with you, and we can help you steer to where you will not run your bonding ship aground before this happens. Back to what we were talking about, Wade, we want what's best for our listeners, whatever they're going through, whatever they want to accomplish. We've had podcasts on so many topics. You remember the podcast we had with Rob and the fella who literally buys construction companies? He's a broker for it. He was just sharing some of the tricks of the trade from their perspective. Okay, that makes sense. We want to buy your company for as little as possible and get as big a return as possible. But there's so many win-win situations when you think about all the aspects of what do I want to accomplish? What do they want to accomplish? And how do we come together? And am I thinking about this only one way, or are there multiple ways I can accomplish what I want to accomplish? That's what I see going on with my customers right now. They're trying to weigh all this. And I would also say to our listeners that have no time and no ability to think about the value of their company, this is a good time to think about it. I told you how many customers we have. They're not even going to listen to anything about retirement. The only thing that's going to get their attention is someone that wanted to pay $20 million for their company in cash. Okay, I'll sign over the papers to you. You give me that $20 million check and I'll see you later. That's fantastic if you can do it. I'm happy for them, if that's what you want.
Yeah, I've seen deals like that. Usually it's tied to, okay, you've got to stay with us and keep these relationships. Sometimes it's more, okay, like we got recurring revenue. You have to continue that relationship. And just like CPA firms, if you lose that, sometimes I've seen clauses where they will claw back the purchase price. If you don't maintain that. There are pros and cons to selling to private equity or whoever, the liquidity, maybe cashing out, but sometimes they lose their autonomy, their ability to do what they want to do. And so they're brought in and they hate it. From the private equity, just to talk about what you were talking about, a lot of times they've got a relationship with their bonding company. And sometimes the private equity will throw that out the window. And they don't realize that you may have some expertise in working with this particular type of construction. And maybe they should consider keeping their bond agent in place. Same thing I say with accountants. They don't realize how much that relationship for the bonding company and having the agent going to bat for them and knowing, as opposed to the private equity has somebody that they use and just gets it done because they have big money, but they don't know the risk and all the things that can go wrong with a particular type of construction. Thoughts?
As a buyer, what you're going through with your consultant, your bonding agent, your insurance agent is what economy of scale can I replicate what's going on now and get the right advice going forward. I can just tell you, all the underwriters out there say private equity companies absolutely provide no indemnity and take all the cash out of the company, which keeps you from getting bonds. So how is the work capitalized and funded? How is growth in your company that you've already started? How has that continued? So I would say to someone buying the company, let's look at what it is you want to accomplish and what you need out of it and how to go backwards from there. Because everybody's seen that movie Wall Street where Michael Douglas goes in there and just absolutely, or Pretty Woman, these arbitrageurs go in there and they buy your company and then they destroy it, they liquidate it because you've got all these hidden assets you didn't know about. Your plant is worth more being destroyed and developed as real estate at its current location. You have all these hidden assets and you've got the power to name your terms with the financial institutions that are doing the financing. That's another aspect of it. I like to go back to Wade, what we were discussing about backlog gross profit, because backlog gross profit is the predictor of the future. That's what bonding companies look for. Backlog gross profit will tell someone buying the company how consistent you are in estimating your profits. That's huge to me. And your backlog gross profit is determined by your work in progress report, which can be at whim to all kind of different elements. All different situations can be thrown into that whip that can offset those numbers. So you got to have an accounting firm that understands what's being impacted, what's put into those numbers, analyzing that. But then you go back to the backlog gross profit and you say, basically someone's paying for me now, my estimated profit I'd take out of these jobs. And they're going to Make sure that I'm here to make sure that we not only get that profit, but we can eat more profit out of that backlog gross profit. And then on top of that, we have to replicate that. So you remember I was telling you about a bunch of mergers and acquisitions and insurance agencies in the Memphis area. This was years ago that was going on. And agent over in West Memphis comment was like, no, why would I want to go buy their agency book of business when I can just go get it myself? And I liked his cockiness, and he was good enough to go get it himself. He was like, yeah, if I want your business, I'm going to go get it. That same attitude comes with the contractor that's hungry for work, right? What are all these elements that are missing that need to be there to make this successful? Again, there's nothing better than a good story of someone selling their business and making a profit, living the American dream there. But at the same time, how do you skin a cat? How do you get through all of this paperwork, all these offers? How do you emotionally take yourself out of the picture to be able to truly analyze the numbers? You have to say, what is the true value of your company? And then someone comes in here and you say, the value of my company I worked so hard to build up is my equity that I put on my personal financial statement. It's right in my year end. It's right down at the bottom corner. That's my equity. That's the lowest that I think my company's worth. But now I know it's worth a whole lot more because we got great people. I've got a great name built up for myself. We're making good profits. A lot of people want to do business with us because of who we are. That value in your mind is X amount, right? And then the person buying it is X amount. And you got to come to grips if it's worth it to you. So there's emotional part of getting out of business. It's coming into play now. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay. Some great thoughts, and I think we could probably spend another hour on this topic because there's so many things. You just also unpacked one that I just thought about as you were saying. Had a recent situation where somebody took on another large industry and completely different from what they were used to. They just saw on paper that they were very profitable, but they realized that their payment, the terms, it took a lot longer to get paid, let's just say. And then they ran into some major cash flow issues. And that's why they started looking at my book. And that's where we ended up starting a conversation. But there's a lot to think about, whether you're selling it or whether you're buying it, not discounting the relationships and the expertise that you got in place, making sure you have that locked down, whether it's the people in-house, their bond agent, their accountant, their lawyer, their bankers even can play into it. But a lot to think about. So if you got some value out of this or you had some thoughts or questions, we'd love to see them in the comments below. We do this every single week, and we'd appreciate it if you like, share, subscribe. It always helps the channel out. And we will see you in the next show.